Hello, PLT leaders. This is Jeremy, and for those of you who could not join us for our PLT leaders meeting, I've done the screencast for you so you can keep up to speed with what we're doing. So I'm going to do this in three short parts, and actually one of the things I'm hoping to show you, not so much as we would have done if you had done it with me in person, but show you some of the learning strategies that we looked at that perhaps you can share with your team and use with your students. So the first part of this, we're going to kind of go over some information from the last time that we were supposed to meet, and that was when we did the virtual learning lab. And today we're going to take a look at a couple of things. And you'll see on your screen right here that there is the agenda. And I sent this out to you so you can certainly see the agenda. And the first part we're going to look at in the first screencast will be these first two areas of the whole mindset, design thinking, um, and then the 10 arenas of learning. And then we're going to dig a little deeper into some of the arenas of learning. So just keep that in mind. This experience won't be like it may have been as we were actually doing it, but hopefully it will give you some insight into what we did. So one of the first things I want to show you as I move to the PowerPoint is, or actually not the PowerPoint, but the Google presentation. By the way, one of the first instructional strategies I'm using here, of course, is a flipped concept model. I am actually right now using a free version of a Screen-O-Matic, which you could download and use to make videos for your students if you wish. It's one of the strategies that we're looking at using now. I'm going to go here real quickly and make this to where we can see it. Well, actually, I'll leave it up like this. One of the things I looked at the very beginning, well, actually, let me do this. Sorry, it is like being there. Presenting from the beginning is what I'm going to do. So one of the first things that we took a look at here is thinking about the context of the work that we're doing here at Athens Drive and trying to align what we're doing instructionally. And I know that in the last couple of years things have gone here and there, and I'm trying to pull the pieces together for us today. So one of the things I want to look at is take a little journey back for those of you who are not with us, or those of you who are new to us, or have forgotten, which is easy to do. Take a look here at some of the things we focused on as a faculty in past staff developments, past PLT leaders, and all of that stuff. We have really spent some time on the literacy strategies, talking about how to use literacy strategies in the classroom. Assessment, we've talked a little about formative assessments. We've talked about summative assessments. That kind of brings us into the data. I'll skip differentiation for a second. Into the data where we looked at pre-data, or what I call diagnostic data, formative data, and summative data, and how we use those elements differently, how we might use learning profiles to figure out how students learn better, or how we can help engage them a little bit differently. And we spent a little bit of time, talking about differentiation. And what we had said about that was some of the big ideas there was that there is the whole idea around content, process, and product, and how you differentiate in a mixed ability classroom, which in essence a lot of classrooms are, even if they're labeled honors or AP, because we know that some students are at different levels even in honors classes. So really honing on that differentiation piece. And so as we move forward into this year, we're going to be talking a little bit more about these, but also we're going to be talking about what we're doing now. And so as we've moved forward, we've done some specific and isolated work here at Athens where we've talked a little bit about STEM, and some of you have been involved in the STEM program, some of you have not. That was kind of by design in a smaller learning environment where we can test some ideas and see what's going on. Within that STEM program, we also looked at the Common Instructional Framework, which we are now delving into as a faculty. Now, those are proven strategies that do work with students to engage them, and that's kind of where we're trying to head. We've talked a little bit in the STEM program about the design and engineer process, which you'll hear more about as a staff as we move forward. And we've been able to do some instructional coaching, certainly not as much as we want to be doing, but certainly there is instructional coaching that had been going on in the STEM program as well. So that brings us to now, and a quick journey to where we've been to where we're going. and looking at current school-wide focus. And so if we have to define what we're trying to do this year, and I'm not sure we've said this in so many words, but we are talking about engagement. How do we engage learners at all levels? And that's the umbrella for everything that we're doing. And part of that is the Common Instructional Framework, doing some collaboration outside of our comfort zone a little bit with some um, common PLTs in terms of common planning period PLTs where we get to meet and work with through those instructional strategies, instructional framework, and then hopefully leading to instructional rounds. Which we are hoping to be able to get teachers in each other's classroom, because teachers hearing from other teachers can be a very powerful practice, has been shown through studies, and even in my own practice I've seen that being helpful. Um, but as we move here, all of this has also led us to something that's very important to me, and that is teacher leader development. Teacher leader development is key to any of this happening. Administrators can be instructional leaders in the school and should be instructional leaders in the school, but certainly teacher leaders are extremely important to what we're doing. And we've been fortunate to be able to do some of that and are looking for more teachers to take those leadership roles. So some of the things that we have tried to do, and varying degrees of success, have been, we have a common instructional framework coach, and that's Lauren James, for those of you who don't know. And she's been working a lot with the group who's presenting on early release days. Developing those PLT leaders are extremely important to us as well. You, the audience of this particular screencast, PLT leaders are very important. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Department chairs as being leaders instructionally in the school. Our teacher leader corps, we have 4 teachers who have been working on teacher leader corps, and that is a Wake County Public School initiative, responsible for some of the staff development. We've visualized a little differently here at Athens Drive, but certainly we have those people who are working um, with us and with the county to align some instructional strategies as well, particularly around the Discovery Ed model. We have our instructional framework leads, which are people who are primarily from the STEM program, but they have certainly used these, learned about these, know about these, have had success with these, delved into them a little bit more, and can give you powerful information about how they look in your classroom, these 6 common instructional framework strategies. And we also now have something we'll talk a little bit later on about, and that is our AP Capstone Leaders, for something that we're actually looking at for next year in our AP Capstone Leaders. And that is going to be an interesting journey that we'll take. But right now we have 4 teachers and me who are working with AP Capstone. And in general, what that is, it's an access to AP courses for students who may not have traditionally accessed AP courses. And we're working with 5 other high schools in Wake County Public Schools. We'll be one of the first counties in North Carolina to be considered an AP Capstone. And we'll look at that a little deeper, either in a face-to-face session or another screencast at some point in time. So that's just kind of in a nutshell the context of our work. I want to talk a little bit about you specifically as a PLT leader, and I know that it's sometimes difficult to wear all these hats and to juggle all the things that you as a teachers are being asked to do. But I take the PLT leader in any leadership position pretty seriously. So I want to go over again. I've been over these, but for those of you who haven't seen them, I want to go over these and hit some highlights there up on your screen, obviously right now as you're looking. But I want to point out 3 or 4 of these that I think are very important for you to be completely aware of. One, working closely, the first point here, working closely with your chair to cultivate a strong vertical alignment within the content program. That's extremely important in the content areas, and it probably, frankly, some work that we need to do around that. There are isolated spots in the school. English department is one of those that I know is working for some vertical alignment, and we need to be looking more at that as we move forward. I know there's some work going on in special ed in the curriculum assistance to align some instructional practices there such that curriculum assistance becomes a way to assist teachers in the core areas, which is what they really want to be doing and should be doing. Another thing is looking at research best practices. Being the model in the classroom for some of these things that we are doing is very important. Someone as a PLT leader who does model by giving students experiences that are rich and engaging. welcoming others to observe the classroom and observing others. And probably the most important thing I want to point out to you is your role is to be an information pass alonger, if you will. Clearly communicating informations from your countywide PLT meetings and from the meetings that we're doing here. One of my goals this year is to make sure that I bring you meaningful information that kind of tie into what we're already doing here at Athens Drive. So I think it's very important that as you look at this and you learn about this, that our expectation is that you're taking this back to your team and saying, here's something that you may want to take a look at. How could we use this? And that's very important to me as well. So I'm going to take a couple of seconds here and we're going to end the first screencast with this particular thing. But prior to today, we had a virtual meeting, and some of you were able to partake in it. Some of you were not, and I'm not judging right now on that, but certainly something you want to take a look at because I do try to provide information. For those of you who have not seen the Google Classroom before, it could be an interesting tool, kind of like Edmodo in some ways, that you could use. It's popping up on your screen now for those of you who have not seen the, um, the Google Classroom. I like it. I can see a lot of benefits for a flipped classroom. I'm not going to go through all of this because you can see as I scroll through here that some teachers have done the work. 10 of us have not. Again, I'm not judging, I'm just showing. And so one of the things that was asked of you to do is to take a look at this article, Mindsets in Equitable Education, and do this mindset reflection, and then looking at this optional video. Of course, it's optional, but this video is something we looked at last year as the PLT leaders, and it's a really good video, kind of in a nutshell, what does growth mindset mean? So I want to take a couple of minutes and go back, and as we did with the face-to-face leader meeting, um, we did, I exited my full screen there, so um, yeah, there we go. Oops. So, well, there you go. So I want to take a few minutes and look at that article, and those you may not have read it, may have, I don't know. But really, just kind of in a nutshell, Carol Dweck's research about growth mindset is taking a lot of hold now in education. And if you remember from the video we looked at last year, if you were with us, the video that's on the Google Classroom, you'll remember one of the most powerful things from there was when he said, I haven't gotten it yet. That those three letters in that one word are important, and it kind of resonates with me what we're trying to do here at Athens with some things we'll talk about a little bit later on with test corrections and things of that nature that have rocked our boat a little bit, but there's some sound reasoning as behind why we're doing those kinds of things. But growth mindset basically, and there's a whole research behind it, which we certainly won't go into now, and the article is a good place to start looking at that. With growth mindset, we're really talking about giving kids the ability to believe that they can do something. And even in ourselves, even in your own kids, if you have children, how do you create a growth mindset and keeping kids motivated to want to continue to learn? And there is this notion that there is a fixed mindset and there is a growth mindset. And one of the things I challenge teachers to do is think about, where are you in that continuum? Do you have a fixed mindset? They're going to get this or they're not going to get this. And if they don't get it, it's because they just didn't study or they didn't do this or they didn't do that. Or is there a growth mindset that you might need to revisit the material in another way to get it? So that certainly would be important as we have an announcement so you can see when I'm doing this. And just really briefly, what I had the group do, and I do encourage you to go back and read, is I had a Padlet, which is another a concept that you can use. Some have used in class, and we didn't all have our electronic devices. Everybody didn't do it. But I asked for them to do what I call or not what I call it, I didn't create it, but it's a 6-word memoir. And it's a really powerful literacy strategy, actually, I think, where you can take some body of information and reduce it to 6 words to extract the meaning from it. So I want to share some of the ones that the group was able to post while we were there. The other day. So one group came up with all mistakes are learning opportunities. That's really powerful because if you think about it, and we'll hear from Rick Wormerly a little bit later on, that all mistakes really are learning opportunities. There's the bell. A student who believes can achieve. So if you believe in something, you can achieve. With support, I think you can achieve. Encourage effort, not grades, for growth. And that's so important as we're working with building relationships with students, how we can help them understand that there are certain learning opportunities and mistakes are really part of the process. And sometimes you hear people say, and I say this all the time, how do we